Bruce Adams, and for my entire adult life, I have been half of a wonderful entity known as Doug and Bruce. Or maybe I was 49%. I've always liked top billing. One time I complained that people always said, "We're going to Doug and Bruce's house." Why was it never Bruce and Doug's house? His reply was, "They know who the star is."
I can hear him say that.
You know what a star he was, and not just on the stage. A friend called last week and said that although she hadn't seen him much in recent years, she always felt she could feel his warmth. And that made me realize that he was like the sun to so many people. And no matter how distant your orbit was, you always benefited from his light and his energy. I was lucky enough to be Mercury. It's so difficult for me to complain. I see people out here, kids who had him for 1 year, maybe for 4 years. I see faculty members who got to learn from him for 14 years. I got 32 years of Doug education. And now I have to graduate. It will be very different. There are songs that I will never sing again. People have often asked me over the years, how do you do it? You rarely fight and you've lasted so long. What I usually say is that love is so powerful and overwhelming that if you can just remember that you love each other, everything else is details that don't matter at all. I guess I'm supposed to talk about the private Doug, but you knew him. The drive, the silliness, the pursuit of excellence, the belief in biting off big chunks of life because you never knew how much of it you were going to get. This student body, this faculty, this building needs to know he loved this place. At his old job, he was scheduled for 50 hours a week and tried to find ways to cut it to 35 or 40. At Wachusett, he was scheduled for 35 or 40 and would find ways to stretch it to 50. Doug rarely complained about his job, and if he did, it was usually politics, never the kids. He was amazingly proud of these kids. The ones with talent who went on to college theater or professional theater made him brag about them often. But those weren't kids he was worried about, because he knew they had what it took to succeed. What made him the proudest were his successes with marginal kids. A kid who could barely talk in class as a freshman, getting to the point where he could have 4 lines in the school play. A kid who might not have made it through high school, turning into a competent adult, because Doug appealed to whatever native intelligence he found in the kid, fed it and watered it and watched it bloom. He understood so well that teenagers are just starting to have their own opinions, and that to have someone listen to them and take those opinions seriously is one of the keys to their development. On many occasions, kids took their first step out of the closet by confiding in Doug. He was always awestruck by the responsibility conferred on him by this gigantic act of trust. His astonishing integrity never allowed him to play favorites, but he had his special ways of letting the special kids know that they were special. Next year, you'll have a new drama director. I don't envy him. He won't be Doug. It is unfair of you to expect him to be Doug. There was only one, and he's gone. And you can't expect him to live up to Doug's standards unless you tell him what they are. You kids have a huge responsibility. The next 3 classes are the only thread that can tie Doug's legacy to the future of Wachusett drama. So, when everyone's exhausted at the end of rehearsal, when the director says, "That's good," you have to have the guts to say, "Yes, but it's not good enough. Let's do it again, let's fix it." Otherwise, The theater company at Wachusett becomes just another school where the kids learn the lines and the parents cry and tell them it's wonderful and everybody involved knows it stinks. We've all seen that show. Don't tarnish his legacy by letting that happen here. Any faculty spouse can tell you that school social events can be a little awkward. You don't want to cling, but you don't really know anyone. And when you multiply that by being the male spouse of a male teacher, suddenly your feet are size 22, you don't know what to do with your hands, and you just wish for your fairy godmother to come along and swoop you home. 14 years ago, being an openly gay teacher was rather a novelty. Doug was careful at first about whom he let know. But there was never one time when he said, you know, maybe it would be better if you didn't come to this. He wanted me there. He was willing to be out there acting as a role model, not through activism, but just by living his exemplary life. And there has never been one single occasion when anyone in the Wachusett community has treated either of us as less than a first-class citizen. And we have both always been more grateful for that than any of you can ever know. And it has paid off beautifully for all of you, because by making him comfortable, you brought out the best in him, which in turn brought out the best in your kids. There's a lot of people I need to thank for tonight. First, the hundreds and hundreds of people who wanted to speak or sing. Let's face it, we could stand up here and tell Doug stories till next Tuesday and we wouldn't be half done. It's terrific that we have forums on the internet now to share those memories and our grief. Lisa Genetasio and the Upstage parents have been unbelievably supportive and have put in a lot of hours on this. Sherry Durkazarian and the music department have also worked very hard. And Doug's minister, Aaron Payson, has been tireless and has become a good friend. Finally, let's put tonight in perspective. It's about celebrating his life. It's about making sure there's always a place for him in our hearts and in our memories. But it's also about heaving a giant group sigh that allows us to get on with our lives. Doug would not anyone to let grief over his loss stop them from continuing with their daily lives. The world keeps turning. The fact that everyone took this pause to honor him is humbling and more than sufficient. To quote the great philosopher Conrad Birdie, we've got a lot of living to do. Thank you.